This chapter describes how I have understood and internalized the role of Abhidhamma Pitaka in Buddhist doctrine after reading about Buddhism and several other religions of the world, listening to Buddhist suttas for hundreds of hours, and spending hundreds of hours meditating and reflecting on what I have read. I have simply offered my opinions. Those who are interested in learning about Buddhism should read the original teachings of Buddha documented in Tripitaka and consult learned Buddhist monks who teaches Buddha's teachings without modifying them by inserting their personal opinions. Buddhism as my religion. Before diving into the role of Abhidhamma in the Buddhist doctrine, I want to first express my personal view on whether I view Buddhism as a religion or a philosophy. I grew up in Sri Lanka from 1956 to 1982 in a Buddhist family in a country dominated by Buddhist institutions. Growing up, I blindly accepted everything I heard about Buddhism and followed all rituals without questioning. I prayed to Buddha and gods and believed that such prayings will help me succeed. Growing up, Buddhism was my religion. However, by the time I immigrated to USA in 1982 at the age of 26, I was disenchanted from Buddhism because I paid too much attention to the high visibility given to the misdeeds of the Buddhist institution, which wield significant influence in all facets of Sri Lanka, whether it's culture, politics, or economics. I should have paid more attention to the Buddhist doctrine. So by the time I arrived in USA in 1982, I had pretty much stopped practicing. However, I still enjoyed the peace of mind that I experienced whenever I visited a temple and sat and meditated in front of the Buddha statue or near a tree. In fact, I recall even in my college days, I would resort to every kind of mischief during weekdays, and yet on Saturday or Sunday, travel to Vajirarama, a temple in Colombo in Sri Lanka, sit in front of the Buddha statue and feel a significant sense of calmness and pleasure. Buddhism as a philosophy, a major depression I went through when my father passed away in 1990, prompted me to look for means to seek peace of mind and maintain sanity by looking to rely on something that would give me strength to survive. I think it was around this time that I came across and read a book written by Professor Houston Smith entitled The World's Religion. Unlike me, who is tremendously biased on Buddhism, Professor Smith had practiced and lived each of the major religions of the world for several decades. After reading his book, I began to understand unique attributes of Buddhism in comparison to world's other major religions. I was awed by the philosophical aspects of Buddhism. After all that thinking and reading over several decades, here's what I think. Buddhism is a philosophy because it critically examines fundamental questions about the nature and our existence. It is also a religion because it offers a roadmap to liberate from the suffering intrinsic in our existence. Three components of Buddhist Dhamma constitute of the Sutta Pitaka, Vinaya Pitaka, and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. After Buddha's parinibbana, his disciples had Buddhist councils from time to time to preserve Dhamma. Later, this preserved Dhamma was written and placed in three baskets called Tripitaka. The Vinaya Pitaka, or the basket of discipline, is the book of discipline containing the rules of conduct for bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. Sutta Pitaka is an extensive body of texts constituting the basic doctrinal section of Buddhist canon. Abhidhamma Pitaka is a detailed scholastic analysis and summary of Buddha's teachings in the suttas. Here the suttas are reworked into schematized system of general principles that might be called Buddhist psychology. I learned almost everything about Abhidhamma by reading the book Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma by Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. So before I venture into Abhidhamma, I must introduce the reader to Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi. Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, or Jeffrey Block, was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Jewish parents in 1944. In 1966, he obtained a BA in philosophy from Brooklyn College. In 1972, he obtained a PhD in philosophy from Claremont Graduate University. In 1967, while still a graduate student, Bhikkhu Bodhi was ordained as a Samanera in the Vietnamese Mahayana order. In 1972, after graduation, he traveled to Sri Lanka, where under Balangoda Ananda Maitreya Thero, he received Samanera ordination in the Theravada order, and in 1973 received full ordination or Upasampada as a Theravada bhikkhu or monk. P.S. If anyone in my family or friends is interested in reading his book, please let me know. I will be more than happy to buy it for you. Essence of Buddhist doctrine is captured in Buddha's preachings of Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth or suffering is the pervasive presence of suffering in our lives. This truth teaches that that life involves physical and emotional discomforts and pain in obvious and subtle forms. Even when things seem good, we still feel an undercurrent of anxiety and uncertainty inside, which is samsara dukkha. Suffering of existence is subtle and cannot be understood by untrained minds. The second noble truth, the cause of suffering, is fundamental ignorance or misunderstanding about our own nature and the nature of reality. We suffer because of our mistaken belief that things, including us, are separate, ingredient, and solid. The painful and futile struggle to maintain this delusion of ego continues endlessly is known as samsara or cyclic existence. The third noble truth is the end of suffering. The good news is that our obscurations are temporary. They are like passing clouds that obscure the sun of our enlightened nature, which is always present. Therefore, suffering can end because our obscurations can be purified and the awakened mind is always available. This state is referred to as enlightenment or nirvana or nibbana, which is the complete cessation of suffering. It is a state of freedom, peace, and liberation from the sick cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The fourth and final truth, the path, tells us that by spiritual practice, living ethically, and developing wisdom, we can take the same journey to enlightenment and freedom from suffering that Buddha achieved and followed by Arahants. Comparison of Abhidhamma versus Suttas. Abhidhamma is a literal and unembellished. It's very direct. It uses terms in ultimate reality. It is devoid of literacy. It does not provide instructive measures or methods. It does not provide any concessions for varying audience. It simply provides facts. In comparison, suttas are figurative or embellished discourses of Dhamma. They embellish, they advise, they inspire, they use similes, and they are significantly adjusted to cater to the specific audiences. However, both these parts are founded on the Four Noble Truths. Here's my personal opinion. Two Sutta and Abhidhamma are two parallel paths to one destination. I believe Abhidhamma Pitaka and Sutta Pitaka offers two paths to one destination. That is, an individual does not need to learn, internalize, and follow both doctrines to achieve Nibbana. I find Sutta path more entertaining and inspirational. In comparison, as Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi mentioned in one of his lectures of Abhidhamma, learning Abhidhamma can be as boring as eating sawdust. I was, however, motivated to learn the Abhidhamma doctrine primarily to share my views with my children, relatives, and friends, many of whom, in my view, are trapped within the prison of their own intellects. Abhidhamma doctrine, due to lack of embellishment, etc., offers them an opportunity to explore wonders of Buddhist doctrine without getting trapped or sidetracked by embellishments integral to the Sutta doctrine.